Welcome to a brand new episode of Sequel Rights, the podcast where we take a look at the franchises that make you go, they made how many of those? And we give each and every sequel a fair trial. My name is Justin Camps, and I'm here with
Elizabeth Helly
and
Tyler Hymanson.
And we are here recording remote this week. I looked to see my co-hosts, and they weren't here with me.
We're all here in separate places.
That's right. But we're still going to do the podcast as we normally would, and hope that you guys are keeping safe during these crazy virus times. Hopefully everyone is safe and sound out there.
Yeah, we're keeping the podcast going while also doing our civic duty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you have anything to say about that or anything, really, you can email us at sequelrights@gmail.com or hit us up on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sequel Rights.
And while you're doing your social distancing, if you wanted to go back into the archives and kind of watch all of the Tremors movies for some reason, they're out there. You can watch them. And as you're watching them, you can listen to our episodes. And if you do, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. And if not, the whole archive is up there, and there's not a better time for binge watching than right now.
That's right. That's right. But this week, we get to do one of my favorite things of all time on the podcast, and that is start a brand new franchise. We're talking about the first of the Herbie series this week, The Love Bug from 1968, and I am so excited. We have an awesome guest this week. I couldn't be more happy that he is here. We have a suicide awareness and mental health advocate and famed Herbie freak, Gabe Nathan, here with us. Gabe, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I have to say, this feels like a dream, and it's very late. I'm in Philadelphia, so it's what is it, 11:55 at night,
Ooh.
And it's like you've invited me on a show to talk about the Love Bug. So I might actually be dreaming. But I don't know if this is real or not. Is this a real thing?
It is
or
real.
Is this a dream?
It is real.
I can assure you that it's at least 60% real.
Okay, I don't care. Let's just do it. Real, a dream. Let's just roll with it.
Yeah.
Well, it's so great to have you here, Gabe. Especially because of the exciting stuff that you are doing with your very own Herbie that you have.
I can't believe that I have a Herbie of my own. I've been wanting that since I was like 5 years old. So just to hear you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, he's sitting right out there. That's crazy. Thank you. He and I are very much in love, and we are basically a rolling billboard for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. That will change to a 3-digit number at some time in the future, but that change has not taken place yet. So that number on the back of the car, it's all over the rear windshield. So wherever we drive, people are seeing that number. They're seeing the word suicide. I have conversations with people every day, basically, whether I'm going to the supermarket, buying hand sanitizer and paper towels and toilet paper, as we are all now. People will stop and talk to me and have conversations about mental health and suicide because of this little car. And it's a really wonderful thing. I love what I do.
That is so awesome.
It's really amazing work. We'll be linking in our social media to Gabe's TED Talk and some other things. And you're going to think, wait, what does this have to do with Herbie? A lot. But it's just really amazing work. And it almost made me, I teared up watching your TED Talk. I think that it's just really about talking with people and making people not anxious or feel weird or feel stigmatized about what their feelings are about depression. And it feels very prescient to be doing that, sending that message out as everyone's being more anxious and more scared right now. And I could not be more excited to be talking about this movie today.
Well, it makes me so happy to hear that. This is a huge, scary time of isolation. And if there's one thing that individuals who are experiencing a mental health crisis can feel, it's isolated. and this is just magnifying that 1,000-fold. So this is what the world needs now.
Absolutely. And with that, Justin, I think we have the trailer for The Love Bug.
Let's hear it.
Everyone has a fantastic story to tell about his car. Now, get lined up for the one that tops them all. It's the story of Herbie, the screen's first 4-cylinder star.
Did you see this thing take off?
One of your showboat tricks, Mr. Douglas.
I tell you, I had nothing to do with it. Hey, we were turning.
Groovy, Pop, groovy.
Walt Disney Productions' The Love Bug. He's a scrappy little beetle that adopts a has-been race driver and turns him into a champion. Dean Jones.
Hold it, you two.
I love that I love the start of that trailer. The announcer says, like, everyone has a story about his car. I was like, okay, interesting pronouns there. Yeah.
Yep.
We're here talking Herbie, and we've got a certified Herbie expert with us. I think, Gabe, I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your experience with this franchise. When did you first see the film, and how has its, the story that it's telling, why has it stuck with you this long?
God. So I was about 5 years old, and so this was like the time of Betamax. This was like around 1985, and my Aunt Rena, who lived in Israel, was visiting this country for a week or two. And one night, my parents used the fact that Rena was here, to get some free babysitting. So my parents went out to dinner, and Rena went to West Coast Video down the street, and she was looking for a kids movie and picked up The Love Bug on Betamax and brought it home. And I was sitting on the living room rug watching this film, and my brain just totally broke. And I think everybody has a story about their favorite car. Well, everybody also has a story about like the film or song or play or whatever it was that kind of broke their brain. And for me, it was The Love Bug. It just swept right off my feet by the magic in this movie, the humor, the sweetness of it. And as kind of the years rolled by and it really kind of got its clutches in me, the experience changed with every viewing. So like as a 5-year-old, I didn't really put together that Herbie was trying to kill himself, throwing himself off the Golden Gate Bridge, which by the way is like the suicide, spot in this nation, with so many attempts and fatalities every year. I didn't get that. It was like, oh, Herbie's trying to get away from Jim. But then as you watch it later, the more you learn about life, the more life experiences, just the more the film really resonates on a deep level. And it's written with such intelligence and such humor. Don DeGrady and Bill Walsh, the writers, really deserve a lot of credit, I think, for the how the film holds up.
Yeah, I have to say this is, I have seen the most recent one, but this was my first time watching this movie, and I didn't know anything about the suicide scene, and we had gotten you, you had agreed to be on the podcast before I had actually had a chance to watch the film, and
oh wow,
it was. When we got to that moment in the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense with the work that you're doing. And, it just was, I found it really moving, that whole moment. Yeah.
I think there's just,
it's hard to watch that without a lump in the throat.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's and I had the same experience where when you agreed to be on the podcast, I had not watched the film yet either, and just watching that scene, also to start with this movie, like it just has an amazing depiction of San Francisco. There's a lot of beautiful matte paintings, and there's a lot of levity and fun. And there's something that really stands out about that scene. There's something far more serious and far more dark. And like you said, like the Golden Gate Bridge is such a focal point for this issue and for this topic. And the emotional motivations for the scene are not inauthentic. there. That was a double negative, but like that they are justified, even though it's a car and it's this thing, but somehow it's even more powerful because it's in the context of this, basically screwball comedy where you have, Buddy Hackett and all these other things, but the characters are such good archetypes and such relatable, I don't know, pillars of what you see in and the dynamics that would happen in that universe, that I think that it's something that feels fairly unique now and certainly in 1968.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine audiences watching that moment, in that moment. And I think that the characters are so well developed, and the actors, all veteran stage actors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with the exception of Michelle Lee, I don't think at her age she was a veteran of much. She was in How to Succeed in Business, and a couple other things before The Love Bug, but that was really, I think that was the start of her career. But certainly Dean Jones, Buddy Hackett, David Tomlinson, a master of his craft. All the human actors commit so deeply to what they're doing, that the scene, it's such a natural evolution of the action and the storyline. And really, if you think about suicide is never one thing. And a lot of researchers and academics, the main thing that lost survivors are left with is that question of why. And there is no why. There is no one why. But there are multiple factors that contribute to these things. And so if you look at what's happening to Herbie, there's this great attachment that he has to Jim, played by Dean Jones. And Jim, several characters talk about that relationship between a man and his car, right? Mm-hmm. And what that means and what that signifies. And then that trust is broken, and that relationship is broken, and you're feeling jilted, and you're feeling useless, and it's all these things kind of combining. You give so much of yourself to something, and then it goes away in a flash, and that can contribute to an act like that.
It's one of the scenes that I love the most in the movie, where like Jim has to confront his hubris like head on, right? Where he's like, "Oh, I won all those races," and Herbie has to hear that. And we understand the absurdity of the idea of like, oh no, like if the car is not magic, it's not a person. And like, that's exactly what depression feels like. Like you're not a person, you're not a thing. Like you're not even having this thing. And I really love the complexity of that scene where, Buddy Hackett's telling him, that's between you and him. Like I can't. I spoke my piece on this. Like you can't.
This is a private thing between the two of you.
Yeah, exactly.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
I had to do my buddy. I had to throw that.
My God, I thought that was a clip that Justin pulled.
It basically is. I mean,
That was great.
But yeah, I mean, it does nothing but it's selfishness making somebody else feel small, and it's something about objectification and personification in this car. It's a really there's a lot of very interesting things happening in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you can tell that the writers, I think, really loved what they were doing. And I think it's important to remember that this is the last film that was sanctioned by Walt Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So planning
live action or total?
I believe last period. Okay. But I might be wrong about that. I know for a fact it was the last live action film. The planning for this film started in '66. Mm-hmm. And, Walt passed away from lung cancer before he could see, obviously the film done. But I think that was very important. And I think that the sentiment behind kind of Walt's ethos and what he wanted to achieve with this, that was really a driving, if you'll forgive the pun, force behind Love Bug. And I think it was a film made with love. I think the actors had great affection for each other, and for this car. So they didn't know that they were going to cast a VW. So they lined a bunch of cars up in sort of a warehouse on the Disney lot, an MG, a Toyota, a Volvo. And they had the folks working on the film just kind of mingle around the cars and see how they reacted to them. And the VW is the only one that these, kind of grown white men smoking cigarettes reached out and pet. So that's how they knew. That's how they knew they had their star. And that's love. And that's, it's everywhere in the film, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I was watching this movie. I even from the very beginning, I was like, man, I'm so glad we landed on this for our next franchise, because like it was such a charming and fun film that I was like, I needed this like happy, love-filled, heart-filled movie right now during all this gloom and doom that's going on in the world and everywhere right now. That this was just really like a breath of fresh air to watch.
And let's not forget, just incredibly well made. Like the stunt driving and the stunts in this movie and the practicality. Like this is a production standout. Oh my God, this is something where like there was a point where Herbie is suspended vertically in a tree, and it's like Spielberg ripped off the Love Bug.
Yep,
like that's what happened.
And then, of course, we have the Herbie as Jesus moment when he's bouncing off the pond. It's like, the car can walk on water. It's beautifully done. They actually used like a 400-pound kind of gutted VW with mannequins for Dean Jones, Michelle Lee, and Buddy Hackett with a crane, just dipping it across the water.
Yeah, that was my favorite. Usually I'm the one who buys the, crazy special features laden DVD to watch this because I am crazy and interested.
Because you're Justin, I own the DVD.
Exactly. I'm like, I want to see. And like, some of the most interesting stuff in the kind of like, they have like a 45-minute behind the scenes thing was the detail that they went into some of these special effects that are just crazy. And yeah, the one where he skips across the water, it was like he was on a zip line, and it was just very impressive. And like Tyler said too, the stunts are just like, I watched the end race a couple times actually, because some of those stunts are just so crazy. You're like, this is nuts, back in 1968.
Splitting in half is my favorite. It's amazing.
Yeah. I have to say too, I'm a bit of a Disney buff, but for some reason I've never seen this movie. I think I grew up with so many of the live action Buena Vista ones that had like female protagonists, or ones that my parents really loved, and this just wasn't on the docket. So this was actually my first time seeing it, but as soon as that shot with the hopping on the water and then David Tomlinson being sprayed in the face with the mud, I was like, oh, that's like the most iconic shot. It's in every Disney montage. Like I've seen that 1,000 times. And so that is the one.
Yeah, the Disney montage where they're advertising all the VHS films, that's in there, I think.
Okay, that must be what it is. And yeah, this just has so many like great hallmarks of that classic era of Disney live action films. Tyler already mentioned the matte painting, like a Peter Ellenshaw matte painting is like a fine wine to all Disney fans.
It's like I want to move to that San Francisco.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's directed by Robert Stevenson.
Where people talk like that.
Absolutely.
People get arrested. The way that Dean Jones and Buddy Hackett get taken to the station. Permit me to inform you of the following. First, say nothing that would jeopardize your constitutional rights. Do people get arrested like that anymore? I mean, that's beautiful.
Not in San Francisco, I can tell you that.
Right?
Only if it's you have a down on your luck character actor who is now a police officer.
Yeah, the classic film dialogue in this movie is so great. Just the way, like there's not dialogue like that in modern films, and some of the Buddy Hackett stuff is just so smart, and I had a great time with it.
I had newfound
his monologue where he talks about how, if everything you say about this car is true, it's already starting to happen. And he goes on this incredibly prescient monologue where he's talking about machines being stuffed with information until they're smarter than we are. I mean, hello, AI. Like, this is what we are.
Yeah, he basically says, us humans screwed up this world and now the cars are becoming sentient. And it's so funny because we've actually interviewed before John Negroni, the guy that wrote that Pixar theory about how the Cars, like Pixar movie Cars universe is actually like, it's all connected and the cars have become sentient in the future. And I was like, Herbie like basically laid that out, we were there 50 years before Cars ever came out. I was going to say, if we just like, put it in reverse, back to the basic premise of this movie and some of the like basic characters. You've already mentioned Dean Jones, who's the race car driver that's kind of, down on his luck. And he kind of wanders into a fancy dealership, Tyler, what did the sign say again?
Oh, may I direct your eyes to these?
Your attention.
Your attention. I'm sorry. Yes. ...
I know.
Check out those games.
Yeah,
let's look at those games.
I was thinking
children's films.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to get away with any, misrepresented lines on this episode with Gabe here because he said he's got it memorized.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty funny because I don't know, like, yes, there are some dated things with the way that Michelle Lee's character is treated, but it's like hard to be mad because it's also so charming and innocent at the same time while being kind of inappropriate by today's standards. But in the end, it's just kind of like, I'll allow it.
You can tell that all the heart is in the right place, and like so much of this movie, like the way that people talk, it's like a Howard Hawks film, like it's an old noir movie, like it's so much fun, like all the dialogue just crackles.
Yeah, it is so sharp, and one of my favorite moments is, you want to talk crisp and sharp, there's nothing crisper and sharper than David Tomlinson delivering dialogue.
Oh my god.
In the first place, it might interest you to know that under normal circumstances, I would never sell a car to someone with whom I were not, well, shall we say, socially compatible. My God, you're dying. You're dying for the next line. The way it comes out, and then just a couple moments later, then get Mr. Douglas and his acquisition out of here before I lose my temper. His shoulders are popping up, and it's just so I'm like jumping out of the ceiling here. And I have to believe that it's not just because my brain has been infected. I have to believe that other people out there on this planet enjoy it as much as I do, because it's just so good. And so much credit goes to Robert Stevenson. Someone mentioned him earlier, and I'm sure I just talked right over you, and I'm sorry.
It's all good.
But a really brilliant director, just a gentle Englishman who started working for Disney in 1957. And of course, Herbie's front license plate and rear license plate is a tribute to him, the production crew. Herbie's license plate is OFP 857, which stands for Our First Production, August 1957, in honor of Robert Stevenson when he joined Disney to work on Johnny Tremaine. So, again, it's another example of love. It's not just a stupid Easter egg, let's put this in because it's funny. It was a way to honor this wonderful man who made this really delightful picture in a really great career.
Are you throwing shade at room A113 or whatever?
I am.
Direct shade.
Oh, just want to be clear.
Right.
Okay. The gauntlet has been thrown.
You mentioned Tomlinson's performance, and I was enthralled with it. I loved it so much, and it made me realize I was like, okay, this is like the Headley Lamar performance in Blazing Saddles, which is one of my favorite movies, and it's just pure Tomlinson. It's so good. It's such classic screwball, classic noir. It's everything. It has an element of every piece of my favorite movies, and I was shocked at how sophisticated it was for really at the time was just a romp. It was a movie that everyone went to go. It was intended. Everyone goes on a Sunday, super fun. Well, then we'll go see something else next Sunday.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, this Tomlinson character, and of course he's also very well known for Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Mary Poppins. But yeah, if Mr. Banks had never gone back to fly the kite, like this might have been where he ended up. Like if he had bought the car dealership.
I was like trying to hold. I was trying to hold myself back from making all sorts of racing Mr. Banks comments and like jokes. I was thinking about that all week. But
I'm glad you got it.
Yeah, I had to throw it in.
Totally.
Yeah, his like every moment with him during that final race, all of his comments in the car are like pure gold. Like I love.
Oh my
that.
God.
I love that moment when he's like, "These is the times that I hate myself," or whatever. Like right before he like runs him off the road. It was so funny.
And tries to kill all three of them.
Yeah. It really turns into like wacky
I love
races,
how it goes from like there's literally a scene where Herbie's trying to commit suicide in this movie, and then it becomes wacky racers, and the heart is never dropped. It's never forgotten throughout this entire movie.
Yeah, it's absolutely there. It's in every scene, in every moment, in every small victory, in every downturn, where they're in Mr. Wu's area and they're trying to start him and he won't start, and you just get this heavy feeling, and it's there. The moment where Buddy Hackett goes and puts the blanket on over Herbie's engine cover. The blanket has these metal hooks, and he hooks it onto the air vents above the engine lid, and it's just so sweet. Even the way Benson Fong, who plays Mr. Wu, just kind of shuts the light off. When you come to last page, close the book. It really gets you. And as we said, there are some things in it that it doesn't quite, pass the sniff test for the woke 2020 culture, but I mean, finding a Disney film from that area that does, and
Cannot.
I think, and I really do think, and even Michelle Lee talks about this in the commentary on the DVD when they're in Mexico, because Herbie's intake is too small for a race in America, so Jim takes him to Mexico for this little race. And she says, "Oh, the way this was shot and the Mexican stereotypes, this would never pass now." But no one says anything about the Asian stuff.
Oh God!
And Mr. Wu's dialogue.
Well, I'll say something about it.
Yeah, go for it, Elis.
Well, okay. No, it's complicated, right? So I somehow, this is my cross to bear on this podcast, being Asian American. But, I love Benson Fong. He's a freaking legend. Flower Drum Song is one of my favorite movies of all time, despite its very, very strange and, outdated racial stereotypes. But, he's a polarizing figure because he is best known for being Charlie Chan, which is like a really racist, famous Chinese detective series of movies. And a lot of people say that character set Asian representation back a lot. Other people were like, you know what? He was the good guy. He was smart. It's very polarizing. In the end, this guy was an actor. He wanted to work. He worked a lot. Some things that are not as good, towards, I'm sure, how Asians wanted to be seen. But in this movie in particular, the dialogue is a little bit, some of it's a little racist and stereotypical. In the beginning, he's kind of shown to be like a penny pincher, and he's using his abacus to, calculate how much they owe him or whatever it is. But I think it's great when, Tennessee, Buddy Hackett, is talking to him in this just god-awful Chinese, and he's humoring him, and then at the end he just replies to them in English, and they're all like, they're like, wow, we're dumb. You know English. It was so great.
And of course, he ends up owning a Thorndike shop and making Thorndike and Havashaw his employees in the shop. And
Tennessee, they all the white people work for him by the end.
That's right. And I think he actually comes off, I think, as a very intelligent and compassionate character. He's betting and he has a vested interest in the outcome of the race. But I think he genuinely, and again, we come back to that theme of love. I think he genuinely loves that car. And it really does come through.
Yeah, and I like too when they go to what is like known as Chinese camp, probably because there was a bunch of Chinese miners there at some time, and his like there's like a physical fitness Boy Scout troop type people that like lift up the car, and Benson Fong's son Brian is like the main extremely good looking, by the way, like Henry Golding step aside, main Chinese boy that helps lift Herbie up for like a long time. And so like there's a few comical, like there's a super old Asian guy that's like, you know, not putting the gas out, but that's like played for laughs, but they're really just screwing over, you know, the other guy. And so, yeah, most of the Asian people, despite like some stereotypical styling, maybe, they are very capable. They're very smart. And I think they get the last laugh. And so once again, it's outdated, but I'll allow it.
So you're saying that that's not what pumps sound like at the gas station. They don't make
maybe
gong noises. Oh my God, that was terrible.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, the most racist thing, as we've seen in many series, is just the music that they put on when Asian people are on screen. Yeah. If you just took that music out, it would be 50% less racist than it is. It just goes like gong, you know, every single time, and that's really what does it more than what you're actually seeing on the screen.
Yeah. The thing that I do love about his character is that, and unlike a lot of characters in modern movies, is he's allowed to have nuance, right?
Yeah.
Like he loves this car, he still makes the bet, and that's a more complicated character than we see in most blockbusters.
Yeah, ever.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's honest about it. He even says, more honestly, I could not resist the odds.
Yep.
You know, I'm sorry. I'm human. This is what it comes down to. You know, this is what betting is. You know.
It's like I'm a businessman. Like I love this car, but I'm a businessman.
Yeah, and that's integrity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, another thing I really enjoyed about this movie. You know, normally here on our sequel podcast, we're always like really getting into the nitty gritty of like, oh, what's the mythology of Herbie? Where does Herbie come from? Well, why is he sentient?
Which ancient Germanic druids imbued this car?
Yeah. And I love that, like, if this, you know, I feel like if this movie came out now, there would be some weird like backstory as to why this, you know, car is sentient or whatever. But in this movie, Herbie just is. And I thought that was super refreshing. Like, no one is ever like, but wait, why? They're just like, yeah.
And then you have the flashback and the mythology story about it. And really, it just boils down to what Jim says. Mm-hmm. You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars. They make them exactly the same way. And one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why. And I love that. And then you have Tennessee. I know why. And, you know, do you? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Yeah. But it's a wonderful little explanation, I think, that really leaves a lot to the imagination.
Yeah, I think that's great.
It just makes sense. Like, it's just, I have to say that I think in my mind, I always thought the etymology of being a hack somehow came from Buddy Hackett. I don't know why that was, but this movie blows that presumption out of the water.
I was like, he's great.
He's
what are
like
you talking about?
Avant-garde metallurgist.
Yes. No, he's an alchemist, apparently.
He's a lot of things. And he also subsists on kelp parrot food.
Yeah.
Well, and Irish coffee.
Exactly.
Oh,
well, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just goes back to what you were saying, that every character has multiple sides and is so nuanced. Like, yeah, he's the, you know, the butt of the joke. He's the comic relief, but then he's also like the one who's continually to have the emotional connection to the car and to the main character, and, you know, like being the real conscience of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the most open-minded. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you really need to be able to believe in Herbie. And you can hear it in that kind of 60s parlance. Just open your mind, man. You know, open your mind to the ways of the bug. But like that's really what it is. If you just sit back, roll a dubs, and you believe it. You'll believe it.
I did think at the beginning of this movie, I was like, oh man, are we going to have a drinking game for every time a hippie shows up in this movie? But it only happens like
It was
twice.
funny because the hippies at the drive-thru, they called their van Guinevere, and that's the name of the van in the new Onward movie.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I wonder if that's a reference or a coincidence, but should be.
I do wonder if they didn't know the car before production started, if like all the hippie references were there before, because the VW with the bus and the bug like was so much more identified with that movement. Like I wonder when all of that came in, or if that was just what was happening at Disney in the 60s.
Yeah. And fun fact, I'm sure Gabe knows this already, but that hippie in the van was played by Dean Jones in a hippie costume.
All right.
Stupid little fact from the DVD.
Yeah,
Fun
that's
fact.
awesome. And it's funny because not only do the human characters have different sides of their personality, but Herbie, I think, does as well. I mean, in the first half of the movie, he's being like a little bit mischievous. He's like spraying oil onto David Tomlinson. He's
scam.
He's playing matchmaker. And I gotta say, at the point when they heard all that noise and they turned and Herbie had destroyed the Lamborghini and was plowing into it, like I actually gasped. I was like, oh my God, like this escalated very quickly.
I'll kill you.
Yeah, so I was shocked he took it that far. But and then he of course goes on to the Golden Gate Bridge for that huge confrontation.
Yeah, after committing a murder. Yeah.
It wasn't a murder, it was just a maiming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Tanya Harding. It was good.
Oh.
Yeah, Herbie will cut a bitch.
Yeah.
You don't mess with him.
What were some of your guys' favorite Herbie moments throughout the movie? Anyone got some favorites?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure that I do. I liked the going out to make out points and just being like, "Hey, oh no, the doors are locked."
Yeah.
Oops.
Which maybe not great optics wise, but
it was Herbie did it, and they were both just like, "Oh, here we are."
Yes.
Herbie could feel the vibe.
He is
I'm
the
sure
love bug. I mean, come on. He's setting up those love connections.
Jim doesn't get too rapey. I mean,
No.
he raises the finger to the ear, and that's
It's a little. Ooh.
It's a little creepy, but also he's like, it's clear that he's also just like joking around somewhat. Like it's clear that he would be down if she's down, but at the same time, he's kind of like, the car's doing this, LOL, like. Whatever.
I will say it's pretty good for 1968.
Seriously.
I really loved the sick/drunk Herbie moment where he's all woozy and the wheels are like, their wheels are all tilted. That effect is so cool.
That was so not easy to do, and it gave him such a character. Like it made him like a Looney Tune to me in a way that like the best way possible.
Yeah, that was really fun.
So my favorite moment, my favorite Herbie moment, is in the dealership, and it is the very first moment where we're meeting him, and David Tomlinson is freaking out because there's this little piece of shit Volkswagen in his swank dealership with the European carpets and all that stuff, and he kicks Herbie, and it's a gasp moment. That he would dare do that. And, Dean Jones just looks at him. His head jerks over to him. He says, "What's that for? Why don't you let the little car alone?" And Stevenson cuts to the it's almost like at Orson Welles. Like the camera's almost on the floor and it's looking up at Herbie. And all you can really see is the front license plate, the bumper, and those two beautiful headlights. And it's the first moment where you're like, it's this sweet thing that like just got hurt. And we see this look of sweetness in this little car. It's an extraordinary shot. I really love it, and it really humanizes him, like right from the get-go.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it's so good. I want to talk about the race at the end, the El Dorado. I was shocked that it went through Virginia City, which is a place that I've been to growing up in Nevada. But just the actual, like, cutting back through the madcap kind of character stuff that's happening internally with the car, where I think that we're at the height of what rear projection was capable of at this point. Like, it's incredible technically. And then there's the stunt driving in this movie is jaw-dropping. Like,
Yeah.
There's amazing stunt driving in this movie, and it's cutting between the two, and it makes it incredibly kinetic and incredibly fun. And it's something that I feel like that the DNA for all the different parts of this movie have been, kind of extrapolated for everything else. But it's like, you could talk about this being a blueprint for some of the Fast and the Furious movies. Like, seriously, in a way that the formula just works, where it's just like, we're just showing these. There's no way where that footage, whether it's second unit or whatever it was, of watching these stunt drivers rip through these country roads, like, it's just inherently thrilling to watch.
Yeah, the moment where like Herbie's going down the hill and crossing the oncoming traffic at just the right times, I was like, oh my God. Like, that is so scary to watch.
It's the blood clencher moment. You're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And then, there's also that moment where he's on, Herbie's riding on three wheels, and the stunt man was actually hanging out over the edge of the cliff there. I guess they filmed that on the Angeles Crest Freeway or whatever. And
God.
And
I don't even like driving there normally.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's a very impressive shot, and just everything they're doing in that entire sequence is nuts.
And the course itself is just so cool and so fun. I mean, there's a point where Buddy Hackett is like, yeah, we're going to go with Herbie everywhere. We're going to go to Le Mans. And I was like, oh, please don't fucking go to Le Mans. Enough movies about Le Mans, okay? Like, I would rather watch this final race any day compared to stupid Ford and Ferrari or The Dog in the Rain or any of those movies. I'm so sick of Le Mans. I was like, this course is so exciting compared to that.
Yeah, are there any abandoned mines on the Le Mans track? I mean, come on.
There is a point where Herbie destroys a historic ghost town in my home state, and having been to my fair share of historic ghost towns, that's fine.
I did like it when all the cars, not just Herbie, but every car except for the antagonist goes into the Calico mine train from Knott's Berry Farm and is like driving on the different levels, which that was just
that
hilarious.
shot was so cool with like the miner and like the cars going by in the background and different levels. I was like, that was really impressive. But
it is technically beautiful, and if you think too, pre-CGI, well, you want to make a 40 horsepower VW go fast, you better stick a Porsche engine in there, and that's what they did. And Buddy Hackett and Dean Jones share memories of driving in that actual vehicle, and kind of scaring the shit out of themselves because that thing moved. That car is 1,600 pounds. I mean, that's nothing. Mm-hmm. So that thing was just flying down there. It's crazy to think about. I mean, my car has 60 horsepower, and I'm scared to drive it. It's an unsettling. It brings you closer to God for sure.
Yeah.
And I know we haven't talked about her much yet, but the character Michelle Lee, she starts off, they kind of objectify her a little bit, and she's like sort of dating her boss, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here, but then she really acquits herself and shows to be very capable and a good mechanic and a great person, and not afraid to call out Dean Jones on his crap, like, too, when he's being a jerk. She's like not into him, and so I really liked that. But it was funny because I was kind of like, well, why is she? The other car only has 2 guys, but they have 3 people. And of course it ended up being necessary because they used all 3 of them. But it was so funny because she has this fantastic beehive hairdo, but then she's wearing the helmet for like all day. And then they get back to the camp and they're fixing the car, and her beehive is like perfectly coiffed. And I'm like, really? Come on. So that was really funny.
Well, if you watch the film with the DVD with the commentary, it's so good because Dean Jones and Buddy Hackett recorded theirs together, and Michelle Lee recorded her stuff separately. But she, oh my God, anytime she comes on the screen, you just hear her just chirp up, oh, there I am. Look how cute I was. Oh, that outfit. Oh my gosh. Look at me in that yellow. I'm so cute. It's just, she's so funny and so charming. And she gets so excited when so for instance, the scene where they're in the drive-in restaurant for those 2 hamburgers and a coffee.
Yeah.
And she's banging on the window to get the hippie's attention. Help, I'm a prisoner. I can't get out. She's like, oh, watch here. Stupid Michelle Lee. Watch for continuity. Here, in this moment, I've got my earrings on. Oh, they cut back to me. Oh, no earrings. Idiot. It's just so much fun remembering. She remembers the day Bobby Kennedy was shot and killed.
Oh my
and
gosh.
that they announced that on the set. And she said, we started that day around, kind of holding hands and just talking about it. And it's unbelievable to think about, like, the political unrest and the turmoil that was going on in '68 while this film was being shot. That was all happening. And she, I think, just had such an appreciation for who she was working with and what she was doing. And I think she made the absolute most of her character. I can't imagine anybody else playing that role. And she does make a comment about the helmet too. She said, I insisted that parts of my hair be visible under the helmet because I didn't like the way that the helmet looked. It covered all my hair. So I wore it kind of sitting back so that my hair would stick out a little bit underneath it. And she's just too much. It's too much.
Love it.
That's incredible that all this was happening in '68. Like, I didn't even really think about the historical context of what it meant to make a movie like this at that time. That's even more brave in a way to me.
Yeah, that might have been part of the reason why it was such a huge hit box office. Yeah. Made a ton of money.
I think if you re-released it today, and I'm really serious. I think if it was re-released today in the midst of COVID-19 and fucking Trump, excuse me.
Go for it.
Amen on our side. Yeah.
I think people would fall all over themselves and would absolutely fall in love with this picture all over again. People who know it and people who don't know it. Because it is innocent, because it is sweet, because it's intelligent, because it's hopeful. Again, this is really that's something that we need now.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. Well, do you want to start to wrap things up here, Tyler? Do you want to do a rating system, or what are you thinking?
How many bear cleaned goggles?
Oh my God! We didn't even talk about the bear.
We didn't even talk about the bear.
I forgot about the
bear.
That's such a great moment.
Yeah. How many bear cleaned goggles would you give the Love Bug?
I can start, and I would give it 8 pairs of bear cleaned goggles. Oh wait, did I say 8? I meant 9. My bad. 9 pairs. It was really great. It's close to perfect, but I'm not going to quite go perfect just because of some of the little things that maybe don't hold up that went a little bit too far. I mean, I did say I'd allow it, but just to give my 10 stamp of approval, knowing that stuff is in there, I have to hold back. So I'll say 9, but it was very good. I'm great. I'm really glad that I have finally seen it.
How about you, Tyler?
I think I'm going to go 8 pairs of goggles. I think that it's thrilling. I think that it's wonderful. The matte paintings are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And just all of the characters, all the nuance. I think that there's a lot of DNA for every type of movie that I love, of cannonball runs and action and great stunts. And as I'm saying it, I'm going to go back up to 9.
I was thinking the same thing.
I really did enjoy everything about this movie, and it really surprised me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go 9 as well. Like I said earlier, this is just like, I feel like I needed this movie right now, too. It's just, it put a smile on my face, and, it made me excited for what we have to come on the rest of the episodes here. And, just all the performances are so top notch, and all the work behind the scenes is really on display here. It's got that Disney magic, and I really love it. Gabe, what about you?
I'm sure you would give it a 10, Gabe.
Oh my
so I don't know.
Rate it? Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, we know you're going to give it a 10.
You don't have to grade it. You
can abstain.
I'm not going to give it a 10. I'm going to give it 9.5 Bear Clean goggles. So let's pretend, that one of the pair of goggles got caught in a jigsaw or something, or a lens popped out, because I really, I'm with you, Elizabeth. Like there are certain things that, like, if I could watch this movie with my children, which I have many times, and not have to address anything or have a conversation about anything, then it would be perfect. Yeah. And it's not. And Herbie isn't perfect either. And my Herbie out front is not perfect. You know what I'm saying? So I think we have to acknowledge that, and that's okay. I think it's really okay to love something with its imperfections. It's what we teach people. It's what we should be teaching people about each other. 9.5 Bear Clean goggles for me.
That's so great. And so we have not seen the other movies in the franchise yet. We watch them in order, and we do one episode each. But I know in our email exchange, Gabe, you sort of alluded to the fact that you are maybe not such a huge fan of the later films. So I don't know if you wanted to give us any warnings or preview of what's to come without spoiling anything.
Well, you're going to have some more moments that are not perfect in the films to come. And that is okay also. Some may be more okay than others. We have to take things in historical context and yada, yada, all that crap. But to me, for my money and for my heart, there is no comparison in any way, shape, or form to this film. Even though Rides Again was directed by Stevenson and also music by George Bruns, so there are a lot of the same folks working on the second film. But to me, none of the sequels hold a candle.
Okay. So what is up next for you and Herbie, and where can people follow and find what you've got coming up?
Well, golly gee willikers, life for us has changed a tad with the COVID-19 situation.
Sure.
Usually springtime is very, very busy for us. I run my Herbie every day that they haven't put salt on the road. If they've put salt down to melt the snow, then we can't go out because it just eats away at old metal. But if it's 20 degrees and warmer, we're out. But the situation now, a lot of the mental health events that I had scheduled to do have been canceled. I made an hour-long documentary film about suicide awareness. It's called A Beautiful Day Tomorrow, which of course is a line from The Love Bug when Dean Jones is trying to pull Herbie off the bridge. He says, "Come on, baby, it's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow." And so that's
great.
My road trip film. That was scheduled to premiere at a Philly area theater on April 1st. That has been canceled. I'm considering making it a virtual premiere and showing it online. So stay tuned for info about that. You can follow me on Instagram at LoveBugTrumpsHate. Yes, that's political. I love when people ask, "Is that political?" I'm like, so
what do you think?
Herbie, go ahead.
I was like, what do you think, people? Come on,
It's like looking at The Love Bug with the sexism and drinking. Is this a kids movie? Of course. Anyway, but My Love Bug also has a Facebook page. It's if you search for Love Bug Trumps Hate, you'll find him there. And I try to diversify the posts. Some are just about the car, some are about beautiful places in the Philadelphia area, wherever we're traveling, and some are about suicide awareness. And I think it's really important to spread that message, not just while we're driving around, but virtually as well.
And integrate it into everyday life, because that's where the problem is.
Absolutely.
Well, anything that we can do, we'll be sharing all of those links. We'll be putting that out there. As with COVID-19 and everything else, as Gabe said, isolation is going to feel really powerful, but just know that everybody out there is feeling this isolated. So reach out, talk to your friends, talk to everybody, especially if you are feeling alone, because nobody is in this world.
Mm-hmm. And what was the number again, Gabe?
Oh, yes.
That number, if you are in crisis, and honestly, even if you're not, even if you just feel like you need someone to talk to, and that's an important thing about the Lifeline. Sometimes people feel like, well, I'm not suicidal enough to call a Lifeline.
Yeah, I'm not standing on the ledge at the moment.
It doesn't have to be like that. You can really just need to reach out, and you can do that at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK, or you can text HOME to 741-741.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much. We love talking to you about all of that, so important message. And also, you're like the best person that we could have possibly had to talk about Herbie, because you seem to be like the world's foremost expert.
There's lots of freaks out there, but I like to make the claim that I'm the freakiest of all of them. Some might fight me for that, but I'll win.
Well, I could not be more thrilled to be talking about this movie and these topics with you at this specific moment in time. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll be back next week with, what's the next movie?
Herbie Rides Again.
Yeah. Rides Again.
Yeehaw.
In the meantime, Eliz?
Yeah, please send us emails with your thoughts on Herbie or any other movies that we've done in sequelrights@gmail.com. Or you can find us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sequel Rights.
And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
All right, well, yeah, we'll see you guys next week for Herbie's Last Ride. No, I'm kidding. It's Herbie Rides Again. See you next week.